60 Minutes Overtime.
Do you have a picture of the family?
Oh, sure. Look,
The thing that struck me was that I'd never seen any of these pictures before.
I mean, this is Lorene, that's Aaron, Reed, Eve, and this is on their family vacation.
I knew very little about his family life. I knew that he was married. I didn't know anything about his wife. I didn't know anything about his kids. Now this is
Reed, his son, and Reed, see, I'll show you a couple other pictures of Reed. That's Reed. He's a student at Stanford, and after his father got cancer, he decided to study oncology. He worked in an oncology lab at Stanford as a summer job.
It was all very, very personal and very intimate.
Reed just adores his father. When I was first working on the book, he came to see me and said, "Let's take a walk," very much like his father would have done. And he says, "I know you're going to hear a lot of stories of my dad being tough and brutal to people, but I want you to know that he really cares about the products, and he wasn't just out to make money or to be a great businessman." Erin actually called me too. I mean, she was 16 about 6 months ago, and I hadn't interviewed her. I mean, you don't interview. She said, "I want you to interview me." I said, "Well, have you talked to your mother?" And I talked to Lorene. She said, "Yeah, you can interview." And she said, "I just want you to know that I understand that my father wasn't there all the time. He worked hard, but I appreciate what he did, and I've come to accept the fact that he couldn't be there with me all the time." Interesting, this is Lisa, the daughter from a previous relationship. Mm-hmm. And for a while it was very troubled, especially, of course, when he was, not really taking charge of paternity for her. But they became closer eventually. Earlier this year, came back and had a nice long talk with him. And then, of course, was there a few weeks ago, when he was very sick and wasn't going to make it.
I didn't know anything about the way he lived. And it speaks to the secrecy and the mysterious nature of this persona that Jobs managed to create. The secrecy both about his business operations and especially the secrecy about his family life, private life.
So here's Lorene. She really is, just a wonderful person. But that's sitting in the backyard. And then this is him. It's in his study, just a little study in the ground floor of Palo Alto. And yeah, it just looks right on the street. Sometimes you walk along the street and you see the back of his head there. He's working on things, and there they are in the garden.
It was like looking at a family album, wedding pictures from 20 years ago.
Here's at the wedding, and this is Lisa. Lisa had not yet moved back into her father's house, was still living with her mother.
How old was Steve when they got married?
He was in his mid-30s, 34, 35. And
so this was while he was at Next?
It was while he was at Next.
Before he came back to Apple?
Before he came back to Apple. He had left Apple in '85 and then met Lorene at a talk he gave at the Stanford Business School. And they went out off and on for a year. As usual, any relationship with Jobs can be somewhat tumultuous. But he said to me, it was tough, but you eventually realize you've met the person who you're right to live with. This is Steve's father, Paul Jobs, the man who adopted him. I remember I'd never seen Paul Jobs, never seen who he was, and it was really just a month or so ago when I was at the house and Steve was going through pictures in the drawers and pointing to the drawers for me to look. He said, "Go look in that second drawer, you'll find my father." And that was a picture of him which I love, which is, him holding Steve when Steve was 1 year old. This is in their house in Silicon Valley. I said to him, "Your father must have been proud of you." And this is a month ago, and Jobs is lying there. He looks up at me and said, he was proud of me. And I think he was always realizing that this person had imparted upon him a craftsmanship and a love for doing things right. And he always wanted to make Paul Jobs proud.